Well, reactions coming in beyond El Paso. Politicians on both sides of the aisle are condemning this shooting, including U.S. President Trump. On Twitter, he said the attack was, quote, not only tragic, it was an act of cowardice. He added, there are no reasons or excuses that will ever justify killing innocent people. But presidential candidate and El Paso native Beto O'Rourke called out Mr. Trump after the shooting. He suggested the president's rhetoric against minorities may have played a role in the attack.
Yes, we've had a rise in hate crimes every single one of the last 3 years. During an administration where you have a president who's called Mexicans rapists and criminals, though Mexican immigrants commit crimes at a far lower rate than those born here in the country, he has tried to make us afraid of them to some real effect and consequence. Attempting to ban all Muslims from this country. The day that he signed that executive order, the mosque in Victoria, Texas was burned to the ground. Those chants that we heard in Greenville, North Carolina, send her back, talking about our fellow American citizens duly elected to represent their constituents in the Congress who happen to be women of color. He is a racist, and he stokes racism in this country, and it does not just offend our sensibilities, it fundamentally changes the character of this country, and it leads to violence. And again, there are still details that we are waiting on, but I'm just following the lead that I've heard from the El Paso Police Department, where they say there are strong indications that this shooter wrote that manifesto and that this was inspired by his hatred of people here in this community.
Here is what some people, some of the witnesses, people who were inside, who were out for just a fun night, here is what they had to say about what they saw.
You guys were here for a girls' night. Tiffany, or Nikita, you have an interesting story. You saw a young woman that you spoke to in one of the clubs you were in, and then describe the next time you saw her.
She was laying on the concrete dead outside of the club that we was at.
What did you guys say to each other?
We told each other that we liked each other's outfits and we thought each other was cute.
And Tiffany, you're here. You ran into your goddaughters out here, and it was a good time, usually a good night out here. And then what happened when the chaos broke out?
People just started running. They started pushing us out the back door into the alley out the back because they didn't want us coming out the front because they didn't know where the shooter was or how many there was.
Did you hear shots at all, or you just heard people running and people telling everyone to get out the way?
We didn't hear shots when we were upstairs because of the music, but the people downstairs did hear the shots.
We've seen them all running, like looking down how Newcomb's stairs are, looking down, you can see everything that's down there, and you just seen people running every way that they could.
Describe this area. What is it like? How many bars are here, and what kind of crowd do you usually see here?
It's like 8, 9 bars down here?
Maybe something like that. I mean, there's all age groups down here. There might be a fight every now and then. Nothing ever like this. I mean,
even if it is a fight, it's just a typical 2 people being drunk. One person bumps into another person. Someone wants to say sorry. The other person feels like the other person needs to say sorry. It's never anything as serious as this.
How did you know tonight was different?
The screams, the cruisers, the chaos I've never been pushed out of Newcomb's. I've never been told to get out of Newcomb's, but the security guards in themselves were running around telling people to get out, and just how everybody was acting, you knew that something was wrong. And then when you came outside, as soon as you hit the front street, you seen the bodies, and you knew that this was different. You knew it's something that you never thought of experiencing, never experienced, wouldn't want anyone to experience.
Turns out trade wars are not short, and they're not so easy to win. Economists, they are sharpening their pencils, forecasting what a protracted U.S.-China trade war would cost. A Morgan Stanley analyst note finds the window for resolving the trade dispute is narrowing. Without resolution in the next month, the trade war will bite into global growth. Uncertainty is high. Key paragraph: if talks stall, no deal is agreed upon, and the U.S. imposes 25% tariffs on the remaining $300 billion of imports from China, we see the global economy heading towards recession. The Fed would have to cut interest rates, ultimately back to zero, and China would need huge new stimulus. At Bank of America, analysts there report the trade war has already hurt confidence on Main Street, noting a protracted trade war could have a meaningful impact on consumer spending. And America's top retailers already bracing for that impact. Retailers depend heavily on China for their supply chain. Retail and fashion industry trade groups say 41% of all apparel and 72% of all footwear was imported from China in 2017. Tariffs will mean higher prices for consumers or lower profits for companies, which can mean fewer jobs. Over the past year, the White House has imposed tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum, on $50 billion in high-tech goods from China, on another $200 billion in commodities and manufacturing components from China, and has now begun the new process of putting import taxes on virtually everything else the U.S. buys from China.
When he says after Charlottesville that Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis are very fine people, the commander-in-chief is sending a very public signal to the rest of this country about what is permissible and, in fact, even what he encourages to happen. So let's connect the dots here on what is happening and why it is happening and who is responsible for this right now, and the fact that it's going to take all of us, Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, rising up, standing up to be counted against what this president is doing, against this white nationalist racism, against this violence, and getting this country back. They are saying that our differences are, in fact, dangerous. If you're a Muslim, you're inherently dangerous. If you are an immigrant, you are inherently dangerous. If you are an asylum seeker, you are invading this country. You are an infestation. Those words have very real consequences. You don't get mass shootings like these. You don't torch mosques. You don't put kids in cages until you have a president who's given people permission to do that. And that's exactly what's happening in the United States of America today.
Do you think President Trump is a white nationalist?
Yes, I do. And again, from some of the record that I just recited to you, the things that he has said, both as a candidate and then as the president of the United States, this cannot be open for debate. And you, as well as I, have a responsibility to call that out, to make sure that the American people understand what is being done in their name by the person who holds the highest position of public trust in this land. He does not even pretend to respect our differences or to understand that we are all created equal. He is saying that some people are inherently defective or dangerous, reminiscent of something that you might hear in the Third Reich, not something that you expect in the United States of America, based on their religion, based on their sexual orientation, based on their immigration status, based on the countries that they come from, calling those in Africa shithole nations, and saying that he'd like to have more immigration from Nordic countries, the whitest place on planet Earth today. So again, let's be very clear about what is causing this and who the president is. He is an open, avowed racist and is encouraging more racism in this country. And this is incredibly dangerous for the United States of America right now. All of us have a responsibility to stand up and be counted on this issue.